Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome again to an episode with my buddy Ed and Darrell talking about staying calm under pressure in the workplace. There's so many situations for you to blow the gasket, as they say, for you to go crazy. But how do you stay calm and centered? Another concept is not just staying calm when there's an opportunity to go crazy, but just understanding the concept of mental health and neuroscience at work and having a healthy balance. You know, it's not enough these days to say work life balance because the outcome of work life balance is staying calm, centered, sensible, productive at work, right? So it's a two-way street. If you don't have that work life balance, you're not going to be calm anyway. If you do, how do you up the ante on staying calm and productive by channeling calmness and balance? Thank you. And I've got a question for our friends who are watching, which is on the screen. And it's how do you stay calm under pressure? We're sharing our experiences, we're sharing our ideas, we're sharing circumstances that we've been in. We would like to hear from you. What are the triggers that drive you over the edge, if they are? Because it takes quite a lot sometimes to not go over the edge. And we're just curious to know, what have you faced and how do you do it, right? So on the screen here, we have some steps to staying calm under pressure, and we're going to be breaking this down together, Darrell, Ed, and I. We're going to be breaking this down to better understand how to cope with this. So, first and foremost, I want you to think of the human behavior model. The human behavior model is a model that guides our understanding of what leads to exhibiting certain behaviors. For example, not being calm under pressure. It starts off generally with a triggering event. And the triggering event could be a number of things. Triggering events are an external event or stimulus that initiates the entire process. So it's what kicks everything off. An example could be you feel it coming on when someone is criticizing you. When someone begins to criticize you, boom, triggering event kicks in and things cascade, so to speak. Another example could be maybe you're facing a challenging task and you begin to sweat profusely and things begin spiraling out of control from there. Or it could be a sudden change in the environment. And honestly, these events can be positive, right? You could also have positive behaviors which stem from someone giving you a compliment, or it could be negative, like facing rejection. So these triggering events lead to what comes next, which is a perception. Once the event occurs, then your brain is processing all that information and you're going to interpret what happened based on, could be your past experience, it could be based on your beliefs, it could be based on your values, maybe even cultural background. Different cultural backgrounds, certain mannerisms mean different things. So our perception, though, may not always align with the actual reality of the event. For instance, if someone doesn't say hello or say thank you, you might perceive them as being rude, or you may have certain judgments about them. I don't know if this has ever happened to you. I'm going to ask the gents on the call to chime in here, but this happened to me just the other week. As the gentleman I am, I hold the door open to anyone, everyone. So I'm here holding the door open. And there's a kid on a skateboard who comes out of the store my kids and I are in, but I don't perceive a thank you. I don't hear a thank you. So I'm giving my kids a learning lesson, and I'm saying, when someone holds the door for you, it is polite to say thank you. And my son says, "Oh, that guy did say thank you. He did say thank you." So my son is closest to the door and he hears, I don't. But that's an example how you get these triggers that lead to a perception, but the trigger is a false trigger. And that's why I encourage everyone in any work situation to always process, did I miss something? Could I have missed something? Is it possible that what is being said is not being said the way I'm perceiving it? Ed, you ever been there? Darrell?
Yes, most definitely, Phil. I shared recently, and it really aligns what we're talking about the old telephone game of where someone tells a message and it's, let's say, five people, and by the time it gets to the last person, the message is diluted. What that translates into, sometimes, like you said, Phil, you didn't hear the individual say thank you, but your son did, and it's when you're leading projects and you are, or just in life in general, it's about having a balancing act. We don't always get it right. That's the amazing thing. I don't want to come on here and say just the most calmest person. I am very energetic. I'm very entertaining. However, I am someone that there is a balancing act. You have to know when you are being, watch this, misused versus used. We all get used in life, but when you misuse me, you're saying to me, I don't respect you as a human. And if you don't respect me as a human, going back to Darrell's question about a toxic environment, that is where it's time to leave from being tolerated, where you can go somewhere like here where you're celebrated.
Absolutely. There's got to be an understanding. You're very correct. And that's why I encourage everyone to always get that perception right as much as you can and critique when you get it off. And like Ed said, it's a daily getting better kind of a thing. Number three is the interpretation, right? So you have the perception, you have the interpretation. You want to make sure that you're perceiving right. And then your interpretation, you also want to make sure that is free of bias. To be really honest, we all have biases. We've talked about this in the last one we had, and you got to make sure that those biases are minimized. Then we have the concept of emotions. So now there's been a triggering event, you perceive something, you interpret it, and now you got emotions to deal with based on your perception and your interpretation of the event. You experience emotions. Now, these emotions could range from being happiness on the positive spectrum to sadness, anger, fear, shock, surprise, and other things. Our emotional response is closely tied to our perceptions. If we perceive an event negatively, we're more likely to feel negative emotions and vice versa. So, we as business professionals, we need to see how the meter is moving from, oh, here's an event. I need to handle that the right way. I need to ensure that my perceptions and my interpretation are free of bias. And even when they're free of bias, we need to make sure that we are calm and centered when we're going through this meter, moving into the emotional realm. When it gets to the emotional realm, you got to tell yourself, this is going into the danger zone. If it is, if it's positive emotions, that's good. Everyone wants to feel positive mental attitude, as great Zig Ziglar calls it. But not every time do we get those emotions triggered. Sometimes it's negative. So that could lead to the next step, which is where the danger zone is visible, and that is behavior. I gave the example last time we met of my boss who got so mad he flung a glass container against the wall in the middle of the afternoon and it reverberated all across the office and everyone was walking on eggshells. Oh, he's mad, he's mad. What's he going to do? But we don't want to get to that stage where things explode. So I'm going to ask my buddy Darrell. Darrell, do you want to come on and give us some insights on this behavior realm? How do you, because you're always calm, at least that's what we see, isn't it, Ed? We always see Darrell being calm.
Absolutely,
Darrell, do you
Phil.
want to share with us how you do that?
Phil and Ed, we all wear a mask, and that is us being human beings. With that said, I've used the tools in front of me to be a better version of myself. It took me a very long time to even communicate at this point, even stepping on camera. Um, in my previous roles, presentations were kryptonite for me. So you have to do what's best for you. As in, for me, I found that reading books was helping out for me. Going to Toastmasters and practicing your skills as to how to communicate better, negotiation skills such as Chris Voss. He does a lot of communication skills like that. Uh, Feel like your platform too, as far as leadership. Leadership comes into play in regards to the PMBOK guide, but especially with the 7th edition because that's part of chapter one. So using the resources in front of me, and I blame the COVID as far as being locked in and having nothing to do. So I learned a lot in regards to where am I at emotionally and in my career at the same time.
Hmm. Thank you, Darrell. So what I'm hearing is you got to be intentional about this stuff. You don't just suddenly become a guru in being calm and centered and being able to control your emotions. You work on it. That's what I'm hearing, Darrell.
Absolutely. And in one of my, I guess, presentations in my previous roles when I was a facilitator at one of a COP series, a community of practice series, the guest speaker once told us that project management or project scheduling is an artwork. You got to be able
Mm.
to scope out your craft. You got to work on your craft, practice your craft.
Absolutely. You got to practice the art of staying calm under pressure. Ed, do you have anything to share with us about how one can do this?
Yeah, Phil, I remember when I shared with some people that I'm going to uh, be taking advantage of an opportunity to come on every Saturday morning and join two other gentlemen to talk about project management and how we can get better as just not as project managers, but as people, as individuals. And they said, why would you want to do that? This is your day off. Don't you want to enjoy and just sleep in and rest? And that just made me think about what Darrell was saying when I just thought of that story, because a lot of times the staircase is always available, but we always want that elevator because we want to get there faster. And we may take 3 steps up, and then we might have to take 2 back because I probably shouldn't have said that. I lost my cool. Okay, I'll put that in my toolbox. Next time I'll know I'll handle it this way better. So, excellent question, Phil.
Thank you very much, Ed. I think we've learned from what you and Daryl have said that this is a constant work in progress, and feeling bad about what transpired is not the end game. The end game is to learn from the experience and to go next time to be a better version of yourself. So, what we've learned is our emotions could drive our behavior, how we feel inside could manifest, right? Those who have a high level of EI, emotional intelligence, or EQ, if you want to call it that, they're able to understand how to bridle their emotions so that things don't taper into behaviors. Because if the emotions are not checked, then it will drive the behavior, and how we feel inside is going to manifest in our actions. Many of these actions where you hear people did some impossible stuff, it started from the mental, from inside. Feeling angry leading to confrontational behavior, while feeling happy could, of course, result in more collaborative, positive behavior. So while our emotions influence our behavior, what we've learned from our friends is we have the power to choose, right? We have the power to choose how we act. Daryl talks about Chris Voss, who is a great negotiations expert. If you haven't subscribed to Masterclass, you're missing out, because Chris Voss, he goes into the art of negotiation, which is very helpful for project managers. When it comes to keeping your emotions in check, a lot of times the first visible thing that you find when people are spiraling is they either get extremely loud, or more rapid in their rate of speech, and they begin pitching over you and they get more active physically. And those need to be triggers. We need to be checking ourselves. Am I spiraling out of control? And we always need to bring it down, bring your voice down, bring your tone down, bring your actions down. Don't go sporadic in how you're demonstrating or gesticulating, bring it down, and deep breath, right? So to pragmatize it, we need to do things to bring our behavior down to the safe zone. So
Hey
for
Phil,
those who
would you mind
struggle,
if I add some tangibles to that? What you're
no,
saying there?
absolutely,
Yeah,
go for it.
so one of the things too, again, we're not perfect, so and because we're not perfect, there's tools and things that we could leverage. Meditation, I love leveraging there's an app called Balance. Some people use Calm, it doesn't matter. It's really helping you with your breathing and things of that nature. And working out doesn't have to mean that you are running a marathon or you're about to get in 100-yard dash. You could take a brisk walk around your neighborhood or go to a park. There's those type of things, what we call self-care. Sometimes we get attacked for self-care because they think it's selfish, but if you don't take care of you, that's why, as you know, at that whole cliche, or which is actually the truth, is when you get on the airplane, the stewardess, she doesn't say, hey, when the mask come down, put on your neighbor first. They say put it on yourself, because if you're able to help yourself, you get yourself right, you'll be able to help any and everybody else. So I just wanted to add some tangible things that we could do. And again, it's a continuous growth. So continue to work at that.
Absolutely, Ed. I love that. Thank you for bringing that up because we need to pragmatize it. So it's not enough to want to do better. Do some tangible things. Ed is a treadmill kind of a guy. I'm a treadmill kind of a guy. Honestly, when you don't get your workout in, you know the signs. You know the signs. Darrell is also a physical fitness kind of a guy, and those kind of things are not just a waste of time. It's not just for the cosmetic purposes, it's for the mental purposes. I cannot tell you how much working out changes the game for me. On a day when I have had my workout before I do anything versus a day when I try to do stuff without having a workout, the difference is absolutely clear. And again, it doesn't have to be lifting, benching 500 pounds. No, simple things like Ed said. Thank you, Ed. All right. So going back to what we see on the screen, the ultimate thing is the outcome, right? And the outcome, our behaviors have consequences. When your behavior spirals out of control, consequences of scarring employees, harsh words, you can never take those back. People are always going to remember beyond everything else how you made them feel. They may not even remember how you look, but they're definitely going to remember how you made them feel. And our behaviors have consequences. Positive behaviors, positive outcomes. Negative behaviors, adverse outcomes. If our behavior, for example, on receiving criticism is to lash out at the person, the outcome might be strained relationships, it could be disciplinary action, and it could be people hiding the truth from you. Like if you are a manager by position and you have people who come to you to tell you the truth happening around you and you lash out at that person, you may not get any insider information about what is really going on the street. So I encourage people to really think about the outcome of the now, their behavior. There's one very important thing I do for myself when I find myself in a conflict situation. I remind myself that today could be a lot worse. That's number one. It could be a lot worse. I'm on this side of the grass. Great. What if I wasn't? I don't even want to go there. So the fact that I'm on this side of the grass, it gets me into that positive mental attitude that there's bigger things to be worried about. There's people who are in a hospital ward. They cannot even argue. So I got to remember and be centered. This is how I remain centered and balanced. I always look at the bigger picture. It could always be a lot worse, but the fact that I'm here today, breathing, able to speak on camera, everything else is not as important as my health. How do you guys stay centered, Ed? Darrell?
Yeah, Phil, it's funny you say I'm shaking my head and I'm laughing because not at what you were saying, but just my life in general. Like you said, when I don't get that workout in, and then I read something positive for 15 minutes, and then I read my spiritual book, it's like when I don't have that and I go straight into to work and things start happening because you walk right into chaos as a project leader, and all these chaos and all these things are happening, and he's just like, I just need a moment, just give me a moment. But when I do those things, it's sort of like, you know what, Phil, watch this. It reminds me of when someone gets ready to perform in front of an audience, they do what they call a sound check. And when you do the
Mm,
sound check, you're preparing for the actual thing. And that's what I call that, what I do before I walk into the work. I'm doing a sound check. I'm getting my exercise in. I'm reading my 15 minutes or 15 to 30 minutes. It depends on the timing, a minimum 15 minutes of something that is uplifting, that really pushes me. And I'm listening to something positive as well as I'm working out. So my mind is already set because I'm ready for the attacks. So when they come,
mm,
I love what Kobe said. They asked him about how Devin Booker was frustrated about getting double teamed because he was trying to work on his game, and they asked Kobe. They said, Kobe, if you got double teamed, how would you handle that? He said, send another. And so I say all that to say, send another. When you get your mind in a good operating space, it don't matter what happens, because Phil, my favorite thing now. Will this even matter in 5 years? I'll land.
mm, mm. Great perspective. Great perspective. Thank you. Daryl, anything to share in that regard? Staying centered.
There are many ways to stay centered, and how I usually do it is there's a technique I use every day in my life, and it's by Chris Voss. And the question I always ask myself is, it seems like it's upsetting me. So questioning your training, your thoughts is it helps in regards to keeping calm and staying calm under pressure.
Great stuff. Thank you. I know our friends are in different parts of the world. For some of them, it's getting to the evening time where they want to step out. So, in conclusion, we want to give you just a few more actionable ideas for dealing with your emotions and staying calm under pressure. And simply this: address problems early on, don't let them fester, because things could blow up if you keep suppressing it. You've had these run ins with a particular person, maybe your peer, maybe this friendly fire that happens. We encourage you to address problems early on before they become crazy. And what that means is you could arrange a private meeting, you could script your thoughts, and you could go over these ideas with the other party that is part of the triggering event. Because whether you like it or not, there's some people, it's like they have a PhD in pressing your buttons in that way. They have a PhD, they know how to do it, they're very skilled. Some of them do it unwittingly, some of them do it knowingly and maliciously. So you need to be very open with those people and use I statements. I feel, I perceive, those kind of statements, not accusatory, but really just letting them know how things are coming across to you. Ask questions, actively listen, and hear them out, right? I always tell people, take a break if things are getting crazy, step out of the room. Even if you are in the triggering event itself, you may need to excuse yourself, not like a loose cannon, just getting up and being mad. No, you have already rehearsed this because you've seen it so many times. You know what happens if I don't stand up and get out of this situation. So excuse yourself politely. That's what I would recommend. Gentlemen, any comments or ideas as far as how to communicate with the triggering people? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Phil. You said something too there, where you said listen to what someone is saying first. And I found myself doing that much, much more, especially in the book. I talk about that active listening, and let me unpack active listening. I know some people have active listening where they're already forming a response before you even said finish your whole statement, and they're ready to respond. That is not active listening, ladies and gentlemen. What is active listening? And I didn't write the definition on it, but I'm using just my work, my experience of saying active listening is like Phil said, listening to what they're conveying to you, listening how they're saying the information. As I was sharing with Darrell when we were talking about the book, one of the things also that I put in my tool belt is to ask them maybe what is going on in your personal life. And you have to build that trust though first to be able to ask that type of question, because a lot of times we'll do a lot of surface cleaning and not get to the root. That person may have gotten into it with their kids, or on their way to work, they've got a flat tire. Something may have happened that really triggered their day. And now you're asking them, hey, where we're at with this, what's the status on this? And they just go off and you're like, man, I mean, is everything okay? Like, what did I say or do? And so taking that time to really truly understand where someone is at mentally first by checking in with them, and not just checking in with them when it's convenient. I mean, checking in with them on a regular basis, because you are working with these people. So when it makes sense just to see how someone is doing.
Brilliant stuff, Ed. Thank you. Darrell, I'm going to ask you to share your perspective as well.
The only thing I wanted to leave with everybody is focus on the possibilities and not the deficiencies as a
Mm.
leader.
You want to expand a little bit on that? That's powerful, Darrell.
More how I'm still practicing this technique, I guess, if you put it that way. You got to be able to listen first before you react or be proactive. You got to be able to unpack and digest the information that you receive, because as human beings, we always do the fight or flight type of method, and using the opportunity to just sit back and listen, it helps in regards to staying calm under pressure and what we just been talking about.
Mm. Thank you very much, Darrell. I'm going to ask both you and Ed to please put your information in the chat box so that people who want to tap into your resources and your channel, Ed, who want to get the book, so that they'll know how to do that. Can you put that in the chat, please? And while you're doing that, I'm just going to round up real quick here. For those of you who are trying to get to that next level and you need a little bit of guidance and some resources, I wanted you to know that I have a PM Anonymous website. It sounds like AA, but it's actually not AA. It is it's something I put together to help, excuse me, project managers, and it's just called PM Anonymous. Let me see if I can put it up here for you to see. Okay, there we go. So it is a forum where you can get coaching and mentoring as a project manager. You can also tap into a number of resources at leadershipstreet.com. The one that I would recommend is Dealing with People You Can't Stand from a buddy, Dr. Rick Brinkman. We have a curriculum that he has put together for the Project Leadership Institute, and you can find it at leadershipstreet.com. I would highly advise tapping into that seminar, watching it, practicing it. That helped me a whole lot in many of the approaches that I've shared with you. One of the approaches is everyone that I see, I look at them as a potential ally as opposed to looking at them as an enemy, right? So I learned a lot from Dr. Rick Brinkman's curriculum. I would also advise avoid labeling individuals. Even after maybe one encounter, you can't just label people, because Dr. Reiki says people are fluid and dynamic and they're always changing. And their behaviors and the response, it depends on a lot of things. Sometimes it's their blood sugar levels that is causing them to act in a certain way. Sometimes it's the day that they've had. So we should always allow people the element of doubt, and set boundaries for healthier interaction. There's no point staying stuck in a situation where you're unable to influence or change anything with dialogue. So, if you're in that kind of draconian environment, as Ed alluded to earlier, maybe it's time for you to truly analyze how much more am I going to be in an environment where I'm unable to change what is going on around me. All right. I don't want anyone to feel trapped in an environment without any hope. There's always hope. All right. So you might want to be proactive and start looking for other opportunities. If you're not ready to roll up your sleeves and take whatever's happening head on, because in a lot of instances, all it requires is dialogue. And I've found this to be the case myself. Sometimes it's just going for lunch with someone and letting them know that their behaviors um, are coming across a certain way to you. Sometimes it's just good to be honest and be open with people and let them know how you're perceiving things and ask, is there a problem? You're not saying it in a threatening way, but you're asking to be clear and to move things forward. If you don't attack these things head on and you don't have a crucial conversation, it's going to happen continuously as you stay in that company. And that's not what we want. Okay. We also don't want you to go crazy, as we all have in the past. I have in the past. I know everyone thinks he's cool, he's calm. You're wrong. I've been crazy in the past, but I don't want you to do that. I don't do that anymore. Don't be crazy. Keep your emotions under control. Go back and listen to some of the things we said and make it a point of duty as a professional to master this. If you rewind and listen, you hear examples Ed gave, physical things you could do, examples that Darrell gave, resources you could tap into and intentionally learn this stuff. All right. Well, I'm going to ask for a final wrap up in 10 seconds or less. What's your final word, Ed, Darrell? Final words?
I'm gonna give you 10 seconds, Phil. I'm just gonna basically say, you know what? Thank you for the opportunity, and uh, one of the most important things is being surrounded by like-minded people to help you as you go on your journey and taking the stairs and not the elevator.
Mm, wow. That's a bit unfair to just leave us 10 seconds of that. That's a pregnant thought, Ed. Wow. We're going to talk about that next time. Thank you. Darrell?
For me, Phil, I would just say leaders eat last.
Wow. You dropped some bombs on us, gentlemen, but thank you very much. Appreciate the wisdom. Thank you, everyone who joined us. We appreciate you joining, and we look forward to seeing you again in our third episode. You do know that we're not just going to leave you high and dry with just 2 episodes. We got about 10 episodes coming, so you better brace yourselves, folks. All right, everyone. Bye for now.